Welcome back to another stream. Earlier on, we went through the process of setting up Hasura. We set up our database. What we are building, for those tuning in for the first time, is we're going back to really one of my childhood memories, which was spending time on forums. And one of the popular forum scripts at the time was in fact this XMB forum. There was plenty others like PHPBB, and what else was there? There was InVision, there was VBulletin, there was something called Vanilla, I think. There was a handful of different ones, and even I created my own when I was first learning PHP. So what we're kind of doing is replicating mainly some of my childhood memories and pretty much where I first got started with code, and I thought it fits quite well with the whole Hacktoberfest. So I'm just kind of, what we're going to do is we are going to build a forum script. We're going to use Next.js, we're going to use GraphQL, we're going to use Tailwind for our styling, and we're going to use a bunch of other different services. So I'm just making this up as I go along as well, but I've kind of got a rough idea in my mind, and I have created some issues on GitHub with things we need to do. So the first thing that we're going to do in this video is we're just going to set up Next.js and Tailwind. I've lost count of the amount of times I've done this, but I want to create individual videos throughout this process. So I just want to take this slowly, take it step by step, and hopefully by the end of next week or the week after, we will have a fully functioning forum, albeit very minimal functionality, but hopefully we will get there. So as I mentioned, we will be using Next.js, which is a React framework, and it's really nice. So it takes care of a lot of the things for us, and a lot of the benefits we are going to be doing and making use of is actually going to be some of the pre-rendering, the static builds and outputs that Next.js creates. We will be using that on the forum to give a real a flair of the future with an idea from the past. So stick with it. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna build a forum script using Next.js with static pages. We'll use SWR to kind of rehydrate the content, and I'm excited to see where we go with this because it's gonna be fun. It's quite late in the day here. It's been a full day of writing documentation for various other stuff. So I'm hopefully I can squeeze another hour out before I take a break. So yeah, we're going to get started with Next.js. I've gone ahead and just created a git ignore file. And I'm literally not going to use I don't know why, I never, ever, ever use the script here to create a new one, to create a new project. It just kind of scaffolds everything out, but there's not much. I did have some code snippets to kind of build this, to insert this stuff with commands, but not on this new machine. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to run npm init-y. That just accepts all the questions it gives us, and then we're going to go ahead and install the exact versions of React, React DOM, Next, and what else? We'll just install those for the moment. So that will take a bit of time. What we'll then do is we'll install Tailwind and post CSS preset env as dev dependencies. Those will create the output, and then we'll create all the configuration for that. And I've done this a bunch of times. I kind of know where things belong, but while that's loading, why don't we have a look at Tailwind? Not Tailwind UI, Tailwind CSS. So this is Tailwind. It is a utility first CSS framework. I was going to use, is it Chakra? I was going to use this. It looks really nice, and they've got a lot of the components done for us. So we could probably get really far using this in a very short space of time. However, let's not make it easy. Let's build this stuff from scratch. And the guys at the Tailwind Labs, they've actually just released Headless UI. They've only got 1 or 2 components in there at the moment for transitions and drop downs, but I'm hoping that's all we need, and I'm hoping by the time we need more, those components will come. So let's dive back into the code editor, and we will now install as a dev dependency Tailwind CSS and post CSS preset env. I think that's it. And we'll install those. While that's installing, let's go ahead and create post css.config, and then inside of here, what we'll do is, what's going on? It's not working. Oops. Yep. So let's go ahead and we'll do module export, and we will return an object, and this will be plugins. And here, I think we don't require, we just call Tailwind CSS and post CSS preset env. And yeah, Purge CSS is included with Tailwind now, so that's going to happen out of the box, which is cool. Yeah, so there we go. Let's open package.json, and inside of the scripts here, let's go ahead and add dev, and we'll set that to be next. Start will be next start. And that runs a little server. If you've not used Next before, it's a very, very nice way to do it. But the dev runs a development server. Next will run the output with a little kind of like a thin client on top to run Next. So you get all the API routes and all of the kind of JSON stuff, and everything Next really does. It's magic. It takes care of that with Next start and then build. There is a function to export that'll just export everything, but I don't think you get the kind of hybrid static and server render pages without that. You don't get any of that niceties. So we will just use the bog standard Next out of the box. We will be deploying this to Vercel as well, so we'll get all of the benefits of using that platform. And like a good developer, let's go ahead and I'm going to create. What am I going to do? I have this repo at the moment. So what we probably want to do is we'll probably branch off and we'll create a branch for this feature and go from there. So yeah, that's kind of the initial setup. Let's just get rid of this, and does it need a name? I think it needs a version. Prod is true. Yeah, so we have our dependencies, Next and React. Now let's go ahead, and I'm going to create our index page inside the folder source. This is, I say it's a recent addition. It's quite a, it was an addition that was brought a while back, but essentially Next used to just work from pages in the root directory, but then they added the source directory to contain everything, just so it's in line with other things, I think. Yeah, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to use that convention, put everything inside of source, and it just makes the root directory look a bit nicer. As we go on, we'll probably put some database migrations in here, so it just kind of tidies things up. So we'll do npm run dev. And then if we head to localhost 3000, we'll get hello Jamstack. So there's no Tailwind just yet. So let's go ahead and get going with that. Yeah, ignore this warning. This is just because I've used an arrow functional component and I haven't named it. I haven't named that functional component, so it's next is just like, please don't do this, because there's no way to safely update the state of the page, or hot reload the page and keep the state. So technically don't do this, but we just checking to see if this is working. So the next thing we need to do is inside of source, I'm going to create the file styles. I don't know. I'm going to call this app.css. I've never called it app.css, but I'm thinking in my head the next file I'm going to create is called _app. So I just want to kind of, where I'm importing that, I kind of want to keep that in line. I've never done that before, so hopefully we're okay. So back on Tailwind, let's have a look at the installation. Now I know this is like I know we have to include at Tailwind base, at Tailwind components, but let's just go to the documentation. I'll show you how easy it is to kind of get going with this stuff. So what we need to do is we need to pop this in, and this kind of just kickstarts Tailwind, bootstraps it, and includes everything. So yep, we have this here. And then if we did, just for the sake of it, we'll do apply background gray, and have we got background gray 50? I know that's a future thing. So if I don't think this is documented just yet, but in the next version of Tailwind, Tailwind 2, what we will have is a new color palette, along with a bunch of other features. So, and dark mode. Wow. So let's go to releases, and I can't exactly remember when this happened. Which version was this? It's not important that we get the color in, but I can't remember what version it was dropped in. Another note added. Maybe it was 1.8. 1.8. Colors. Maybe there isn't an updated color palette. I can't remember. Yeah, I'm not too sure if that color palette was in. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just imagining that to be the case. Right. Let's come back to that color stuff. It's not important. And we'll just make the background 100. I thought 50 was part of the release already, before the release Tailwind 2, but I may be thinking of things like the gap utilities. Because I know Tailwind UI comes with a custom style sheet. Right. So what do we do now? Well, we don't need to create a Tailwind config because we're not really configuring anything. Although we may want to opt into those future gap utilities, and specify the default font from system font to be, of course, everybody's favorite, Inter UI. That's everyone's loving that font. So we'll probably opt in to use that specifically. But the next thing that we need to do is we need to actually import we need to import this CSS file inside our application. Now, if we do it here, we will get a warning. Styles app.css. Tailwind, yep, so it's just going to tell us you can't do it here. It's not best optimized, etc. You are best putting it inside of this underscore app.js. So let's open this file, this kind of help file. And what we'll then do is we'll just kind of copy past this here. And we're doing this, like we say, because Next prefers it this way. And if you do what Next tells you, you will be good. Styles app, so we'll import that. And then we'll export the default function. And that is just kind of a hierarchy component source. It's just kind of returning that function. Yeah. So we should be nearly there. Maybe as we need to restart. Yep, so we're getting a warning or some info inside of the Tailwind class here. So what we probably want to do is we do want to opt into the breaking changes now, so we don't code and then, break ourselves in the future. So I can see already, I don't know how well it is on the stream, but I can see the background has changed. So the best way to test that it's working is we could inspect the page and we could check that the color's been set, but that's boring. What we want to do is we actually want to add an H1 to the page with a class name, and we'll say this is going to be text to Excel, and we'll just say hello. And now we can see the text is a little bigger. And then we could say that the text color will be, I don't know, What's the color going to be of this forum? What's the brand color? Let's go with purple for now. And we'll say text purple 500. So this is Tailwind. This is the Tailwind default utility classes that we're using. So we know that this is set up so far correctly. Right. So what are we going to do now? We're pretty much there. We've got the basics working. What we'll probably do is we will create that tailwind.config.js, and then we'll return modules that exports, and we'll return this object here. Now we need to tell it where to purge stuff as well, and this takes an array from memory, and then we just pass the path. Is that right? Whoops. Purge. This is manually purge content. I think you can just pass. If you need to pass options directly to purge CSS, you can also do so using options. So it's if we need to whitelist anything. We do not recommend doing this. On new styles, all okay. Removing all learned styles. Enable them manually. Okay, it was at the very top of the file. I somewhat start from the bottom and work my way up, but you know, this is how it goes. So we need to provide the path to probably is what will be our components directory, or the source directory. Yeah, it's probably just source, right? .js. We're going to purge all of the JS files inside of the source folder because that's where our stuff lives. Yeah, so we should be after the races. We'll next, maybe it's now we'll install the font. And there is a package called, is it Next Google Fonts? I've seen this kicking around. I've not used it. Let's have a look. See how. Well, it's got quite a few active downloads. Could just be CI installs. Not sure. It's got a good documentation, good README. That was. It's also something to look at that I look out for when trying new libraries. Is the README? Is this well documented? And if it is, I generally am more likely to trust this. And it looks to be that it's just a simple wrapper. Next Google Fonts. Let's just see what it's doing. Okay, so it's just adding this link to the page. Yeah, we could do this. Like, we could do this. We don't need the plugin, but it's nice to support packages like this that takes care of this stuff. I'm hoping that Next brings in an easy way. Like, this is, to me, this is maybe something Next could build in. You know, more often than not, people are going to bring their own fonts, whether it's in a local folder or it's a hosted font on Google or wherever else. You know, maybe that's a future feature they introduce because it's something we do regularly. So let's go ahead and install this package because we all love installing npm packages. So let's stop the server. We'll do npm i, install that font. And then I have to figure out how to use this with Tailwind. I've not used it before, so this is going to be interesting, to say the least. There's going to be an example, isn't there? Yeah, of course there is. So inside of document, in our app, so not app, but the document, not our application, but the document of the page called JS. Now, was this TSX? No, it wasn't. Wow. Wow. It knew what font I wanted to use. Brilliant. So this, I don't know if we need this get initial props. I can't remember. I think Next will just do that for us now. Where is the documentation? Custom document. To provide the document class as shown below. Feel free to remove the get initial props or render function from if you don't need to change them. Yeah. So next be next. That is what I expect. It takes care of the defaults for us. So now all that's left to do inside of Tailwind is let's opt in to those future utilities. So I think this is all we do because I've done this before. And Tailwind's got really good documentation. When it comes to things like this, you'll tend to find more of this in the releases because they're working up to a major release. And this isn't break and change just yet. So you'll tend to find a lot of these notes will be in GitHub, like the dark mode stuff. It's kind of hidden. But you can utilize it. You can make use of it now. You can just kind of prepare yourself for what's coming. And then just checking the stream for any comments. Where have we gone? There we go. Yeah. So looking good. My microphone's on today, I hope. Now let's add. Let's extend the theme. Let's extend the theme. So we'll do theme, extend font family. In the font family, we want to change the sans font default, and we want to spread in the current font family sans as well. We'll say default theme. And then the first argument is inter. Now there's inter, and I've seen inter UI. I don't know if they're both the same with Google, but we'll find out. Then we will do const default theme, and we will require Tailwind CSS. Haha, not even using TypeScript. Default theme. Right, let's save that. And I don't know really if we're going to tell the difference of the font. I mean, the inter and the system font are they're different, but maybe it's an age thing. npm run dev. Did that not work? Yep. So let's refresh. Doesn't look like inter to me, but maybe it's just an age thing. So maybe it's my eyes. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's changed at all. Is that how you use it? Maybe it has changed. Font family inter, yeah. Yeah, it must be. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe it's not the correct font family because we only imported whatever was in the documentation. So we'll say font bold. I can't remember the names. Bold is what numbers we did of it. We'll come back to that. I don't think it's important for the for today that the font is Inter. Maybe what we will do is we'll just import the additional weights. So we've got 400 and 700. Google fonts Inter. So regular is 400. And then we've got bold at 700. What else will we use? We'll probably use semi-bold. So we'll do 600. And yeah. Yeah, let's leave it as that. Right. Next, what we should do is, where are we? What time are we on? Next, we maybe should just push this to GitHub in a branch. So I don't have any remotes set up yet. The branch is main, so we'll do git remote add origin. We'll do git github.com. What was the /jamstack forum.git. And then I think it was what was the name of the repo? Can I remember? It was definitely, yeah, it was definitely Jamstack forum. Yeah, right. So to git branch main. Can we do? Why can't I name that branch? Initial commit, we'll just commit everything to the main branch. That was why, Jamie. And then we'll do git push origin main. What? Git push view main. That is the main does not appear to be a Git repository. What? Git push origin main. That's because we have a readme. Git rebase main. I changed the name of the branch, and it's obviously messed this up as well. I changed the name of the branch on GitHub just before I came on here. I'm just going to force this because there's nothing on GitHub at the moment. Hopefully that'll get it back. Yeah. Okay. So I've pushed that to the main branch. I should have created a branch. I got caught up there in the problem we had. It doesn't matter though. Yeah, I had a readme. Yep, so probably didn't need to commit that. It's not important. We're not using these things just yet. Git ignore. We'll do that env and we'll just ignore everything. Maybe that's a better way. What should we do? I kind of want to create a pull request there, but we got caught up in fixing that git thing. So let's just abandon this. Git branch main. Yes. Git switch b. Should we do this? We'll call it. I don't know. Let's call it initial next setup. This is not really nicely named, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, let's do that. Initial setup, and then we'll do git remote add origin git at github.com /jamstackforum.git, and then we should be able to do git push origin initial next setup. I'm going to go ahead and delete that other branch. I've really messed this up now, haven't I? It doesn't really matter. I've got myself all in a pickle now, live streaming for you. Yeah, we wanted it, yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Hub PR create. We'll just clear that. Craig says force pushing is disgusting. Yes, I know. Right, I'm just trying to think. It doesn't really matter about the pull request. We've already messed it up anyway. It's the initial commit of the repo. I'm sure we can be forgiven. Yeah, we'll just get rid of that. And we'll do checkout main. We'll pull that down. But what we will do is we'll remove that, and we'll add in that. And while we'll add it, we'll just get rid of that. It doesn't matter. We don't need it. We'll probably use .local, but commit update ignored files, and we'll push that. Then back on the code, inside of our code, we've got everything going. Jamstackforum.com. Hey, so we've already got. I already have this hooked up to Vercel. So anything we push to master or main, the main branch now, that will just deploy automatically to Vercel. It has environment variables set up there, so that is helpful. I'll probably cover that in another video, but I didn't think it was important for this part. I'm not teaching that side, or I don't want to kind of explore that side just yet, because it's kind of unnecessary. I just wanted to kind of go through Next and Tailwind on this video, and then what we'll do probably tomorrow is we'll go through and we'll next create an auth context provider. So what we'll do is we'll just create a new branch. Git pulled. I didn't push anything. We'll do git. I keep writing git checkout, git switch, and we'll say this is auth context. So we can just use not Gatsby. We can use React context, and then we can wrap our application instead of a context provider. So why don't we go ahead and just quickly set up this now, so we know tomorrow what we need to continue with, because we'll probably explore some of the authentication stuff tomorrow, and we'll go through that. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to wrap my application inside of a auth provider, and I'm going to need to import that auth provider from that context folder, and then we will be good. So that file's kind of done, I'd say. Yeah, let's load up the documentation. Whoops. Where's my window gone? So React use context. We're going to use the context, the hooks API for context, so we can create an overall, create a reducer inside of there to manage all of our auth states. So users will have to log in, create an account, and log out. That's probably all we'll do for now. We'll probably adventure in the future in doing things for updating the user profile, etc. But we'll be using this use context hook. That wasn't working. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll just import use. We'll need to create context first. Then we don't need to use. Do we? I don't know whether I want to do this in this video. So we'll create context, and we'll do use context. I will do it in this video. Shouldn't take long. So we'll import that from React, and then we will create a function for auth provider, and that needs to destructure the children. And this is where we'll probably invoke a reducer. Now I can already see myself getting ahead now when I said I didn't want to. And let's just say is authenticated is not true. It is false. Let's go ahead and do use reducer. And then inside of here, we'll do const a, we'll invoke that reducer. So we'll get the state and dispatch, and we'll do use context. And here is where we need to pass in the reducer and the initial state. And then we'll create a function for the reducer, which takes in state, and it's going to be action, right? But let's just destructure payload and type from here, because I'm always going to follow this. I think this is just my Redux days. And we're going to switch on the type, and whatever case it be, login or whatever, we'll just set a default case for now, and we will return new error unhandled. 2 seconds. Comment. Yeah. So there's a comment here. We are wrapping the application in an auth provider using the React context API. This is just generally a thing that I just kind of do. This is how I set up my file. The purposes of the application we're building is fairly straightforward anyway. In terms of the code we'll be writing, we're not going to be writing huge amounts of code. We're just kind of building the MVP to to get going here. So unhandled action type, and we'll do type, and that'll be all we need to do there. Then we need to return the context, of course. We didn't create. Did we create the context anywhere? Nope. And the way they like to call this, I think this is by, it was an article I read by Kensley Dodds around how you do these reducers and how you name the context providers. And I like to have context for state and the dispatch. So what we'll do is we will wrap, we'll have auth dispatch context, and we'll create some context for that. And then we will have the state context as well. And I think that's all we really need for this part. Then it's just a case of returning the auth dispatch context provider, and then we need to pass it a value, and the value of this provider will be, it will be things like login, create user, logout. For now, we don't have any, so let's just leave it at that. And then we will wrap in auth state context provider again. This time, not the state, the value will be our state. Now we'll probably extend this in the future to be more than what's in the reducer state. We may have some kind of functions we return to return, you know, some truthy values, and then we'll just return children. Then I'm going to create two hooks as well, so we can use either dispatch or the state context. So we'll create a function and we'll call this use auth dispatch, and that will simply invoke the use context, and then what did we call it? Auth dispatch context. If the context is undefined, then we will simply throw a new error that what's the error here? If the context is undefined, you can't get the context, so use auth dispatch must be provided, must be used within an auth provider. Yes, that is correct. And then we'll just return the context, and then this is the same for use auth state, and use auth state must be auth state context, and then we'll just export auth provider, use auth state, and use auth dispatch. I'm going to put that first because that will annoy me. Right. Now then, let's run this. npm run dev. We are running on localhost 3000. Then if we run this, we should see absolutely nothing. Ha! We see an error. Okay, so we did something wrong. What do we got? Value. Oh, okay, the value can't be empty. That makes sense. Let's just remove this value. Refresh. State. Is this the same problem? Maybe it needs a value. log in. Nope. Cannot destructure state. Use context. Ah, okay. That's what it is. Let's get rid of that value. We don't need a value. We don't need a value there. This isn't use context. This is use reducer. Yep, which I imported. There we go. So there's absolutely nothing different on the page here. So what we'll quickly do inside of index.js, just to check everything's working, let's go ahead and export a default function of index page. And we will return, what will we return? Well, if it's authenticated, we will return hello user. And if it isn't, we'll do hello guest. Now we need to invoke that hook. We need to call that hook. We'll do is authenticated, and we'll get use auth state, and then we'll import that use auth state as well. So now I've saved that. What we should get is hello guest. And if I move this over here and we just close this down, this here, if I just change this to true, you'll see that that context is available here. And if I refresh, I get hello user. So that's the state provider working. We haven't done anything in the reducer just yet. We'll move on to this tomorrow when we hook up authentication. And we'll build a very, very basic authentication system, I think. Email, password, and then it just sets the token in the browser for the session. Maybe as we store it in local storage. I'm not a fan of that. I know we should, use local storage for a refresh token. But for the purposes of this, let's just do it that way. I know people do it and it's frowned upon. But maybe it's a contribution from someone else that can help me out. I've got a lot to build here, so I don't want to get caught up on auth, just on auth, because I want to kind of get my idea down, and then we can go from there. But maybe I can learn as well the best way to go around doing that. I personally really don't want to spend 3 or 4 days building the auth system and then not have anything else to show, because I'd really want to get through all of this and show how we can build a forum with some of the modern stuff. And I'd hate to just kind of get bogged down on one feature when there's no one else contributing. So if you are up for contributing, please let me know. Jump over on GitHub. We'll get involved there. So yeah, we'll just add everything again. Initial auth provider, and we'll push that branch. Whoops. Let's just do this. Right. Now we've pushed that branch, we'll do hub pr create. Why do I keep doing this? Hub create pr. Is that right? What is going on? Existing repository detected. Hub create, not pr. I've totally forgot how to use yes, I was using hub, not GitHub. Okay. So we'll do feat initial auth provider. So we'll just call this feat auth provider. No body. I'll continue this in the browser, and we'll just copy in the issue. We'll say closes. Is it 3? Create auth context. So we're not done here. Probably what we need to do is add login function, add create user function, and a add logout function, I don't know if those are the best names, but we'll just go ahead. The project is milestone is MVP. We'll create this as a draft. So we've got these things left to do. We need to create that login function, and then we need to create create user and the logout functions, and then we'll be able to use those. Right. So I think that's pretty much it for today. That wraps up what we've done so far. We've built the schema and the database inside of Hasura. What we are building, I want to end every video with this so we know what we're building. We are going to be building a super simple forum using Jamstack tools. We'll use Next.js, GraphQL, use SWR. We'll use a bunch of different tools to create a modern thing. I spent most of my childhood growing up learning to code, and one of the things I spent a lot of time on was a lot of development forums. In particular, it was ActionScript and Flash. That's where I got started. And we'll rebuild some of the forum features that I know and use then, but with a modern twist. This is one of them. It looks a bit old now. I think it's probably past its time, but I think we can do it some justice by giving it a kind of lick of paint and adding a modern twist to it, and we'll add some static stuff. Other ones are PHPBB. That was quite a popular one back in the day, I remember. I wasn't such a fan of this. I found it quite difficult to theme, so I was more familiar with things like InVision and VBulletin. Those were a bit nicer. But this is a huge blast from the past for me. Look at the dates, man. Wow. But yeah, that's what we're going to build. We're going to build this with a modern twist. We've got the database running with Hasura, and we've got pretty much everything else ready to roll. All the code will be pushed to github.com/notrab/jamstack forum. There's some issues in there that I'm going to work through, and if you want to kind of get involved, please do. I'm going to close this one here. Had a few people comment on this earlier on. Thank you. But we started the stream around about the time these comments come in. So I removed the Hacktoberfest because I was going to take that on. But I will add those tags back as I kind of get more of the boilerplate done. And then, because at the moment, I don't want to waste anyone's time because I don't really have a good understanding of what specifically we're doing, but I've got a good idea of where we're going. So let's close this issue because it's done. And then we've got 12 issues left to do, and we're halfway through issue 3. So hopefully by the end of next week, we will be in a good place. Right then, let's finish the stream here. But if you've got any questions, please let me know. Please reach out. And hello to you as well for joining. Thanks for the comment there. Yeah, hopefully you find this interesting and we will learn more. So happy coding. All the best and enjoy Hacktoberfest on whatever you are coding on.